Anger is one of the most destructive emotions we can feel. How many friendships, love relationships, and even careers have been destroyed by lack of control in a moment of rage? Sometimes, a single explosion can wipe out years of effort, trust, and respect. And in worst-case scenarios, it can even destroy lives, leading to impulsive decisions that we regret forever. We've all been through this at some point: chaotic traffic, a heated argument, or even unfair criticism. The heart races, the breath becomes labored, and before we know it, the words slip away, the actions unfold, and the damage is done. The problem is that anger is quick, but the consequences of it can last a lifetime. But what if I told you that you can change that? What if I told you that the control is in your hands? Not the control of avoiding feeling anger, that's natural and human, but the control of how you react to it. The great truth is that anger itself is not the villain of the story. What matters is what we do with it. And this is where the power lives. Learning to manage anger is not about repressing emotions, but about mastering your reactions. It's about training your mind not to be hostage to your emotions, but the commander of your actions. Because, at the end of the day, it's not what happens to you that defines your future, but how you decide to respond to those situations. If you are here, it is because you know that you need this change. And believe me, this is possible. Controlling your emotions isn't just a skill, it's a real superpower. Those who manage to master their reactions to life's challenges acquire an invaluable advantage, both personally and professionally. Think about it. While most people get carried away by the impulses of the moment, the person who stays calm in the midst of chaos is always one step ahead. On the personal side, emotional control strengthens your relationships. How many fights could be avoided? How many harsh words would never be said if we only had the clarity to pause and reflect before reacting? The person who masters their emotions builds healthier and more lasting connections, because trust and respect are fueled by balance. She becomes someone that others know they can count on, even in the most difficult situations. And, believe me, this has a profound impact on your life. Professionally, emotional control is a powerful weapon. In a world where pressure is constant, where tight deadlines and criticism can destabilize, the one who maintains his composure stands out. This person is seen as a natural leader, someone capable of making rational decisions, even in the midst of a storm. It does not act on impulse, acts strategically. It does not react to the environment, but creates its own environment of stability and confidence. And it is exactly this type of person that companies look for to lead teams, to solve complex problems, and to overcome adversity. In addition, self-control brings an inner peace that no money can buy. While many struggle with stress and anxiety, those who control their emotions find serenity. He understands that not everything depends on him, that not everything is under his control, and he learns to focus only on what can really change. It is at this point that life stops being an emotional roller coaster and turns into a more stable and directed path. The ability to control your emotions is the difference between being a slave to circumstances or the master of your own life. What you will learn here has the power to transform your life in a way that you may not even imagine yet. If you apply what you will be taught correctly and consistently, in the first few weeks you will see the benefits begin to appear. You will notice that situations that used to take away your peace and balance become easier to deal with. You will notice how your reactions begin to change, how you gain more control over yourself, and with that, your confidence and mental clarity increase. Now, think about the medium and long term. Imagine a life in which you master your emotions, rather than being dominated by them. A life where you are able to face challenges calmly, make wiser decisions, and build stronger, healthier relationships. Professionally, opportunities will open up, because people who have this emotional control naturally stand out. People will trust you more, see you as someone trustworthy, someone they can count on. In the long run, the benefits are even more profound. This control will not only bring more external success, but it will also create an inner peace that will impact all areas of your life. You'll feel more serene, more aligned with your goals, and life, which once seemed chaotic and unpredictable, will become more fluid, with fewer emotional ups and downs. If you truly commit to this journey, What you're about to learn won't just be a temporary change, it will be a lasting transformation. Now, I'm going to share with you the 10 best millennial practices of Stoicism that will help you control this feeling of anger and, more than that, transform various aspects of your life. Identify emotions. Imagine for a moment, how many times has anger taken over you, to the point of making you react in a way that, soon after, you regretted it? We've all been there. Emotion comes up strongly, and before we know it, we're acting in the heat of the moment, saying or doing things we're not proud of. What you may not know is that there's a way to change this, a way to control this anger, without letting it control you. It all starts with the identification of emotions. It sounds simple, but that's where many of us fail. Anger is an instant reaction, but what we don't always realize is that it's just a sign of something deeper. By practicing emotional awareness, you begin to notice the exact moments when anger is arising. And, more importantly, you start to question why. What is really behind this feeling? Frustration? Injustice? Fear? Acknowledging this emotion without judging it is the first step to gaining control. Because a lot of times, we feel guilty for being angry, and that only adds to the tension. But when you look at anger neutrally, as if you were an outsider, you gain the ability to choose how to respond. And it is at this moment that the real change happens. This practice is powerful. When you identify your emotions before you act, you give yourself time to breathe, reflect, and act wisely. Instead of exploding, you respond in a more balanced way, and over time, this completely transforms your relationships, your decisions, and the way you face life's challenges. The key to mastering your emotions is not in repressing them, but in understanding them. Practice this awareness daily, and you will find that little by little, your anger loses strength, and you become someone more serene and controlled. This will undoubtedly positively impact all aspects of your life. The power of pause. Now that you understand the importance of identifying and acknowledging your emotions without judgment, let's move on to an essential next step, the power of pause. When anger arises, our natural tendency is to react immediately, but it is precisely at this moment that we need to exercise control. Pausing is a simple but incredibly effective tool, and it can be the watershed between an impulsive reaction and a conscious response. Imagine that anger is rising, your heart starts to race, your breath gets shorter, and the urge to explode takes over you. What you do at that moment defines everything. Instead of reacting on impulse, pause. Take a deep, deep breath. This may seem like a small gesture, but it's powerful. By counting to 10, you give space for the emotion to calm down, and it is in this short interval that you regain control over your actions. This exercise is simple, but it can transform the way you deal with challenging situations. Breathing and pausing before reacting puts you in a position of strength, of clarity. Because the moment you stop and breathe, anger loses its hold on you. It's like opening a window in a stuffy room. Suddenly, the air flows, and the tension begins to dissipate. The pause gives you time to reflect. What is really worth saying? What is the best way to act? By giving yourself those few seconds, you avoid words you might regret saying, you avoid things you'd regret later. This is Stoic practice in action, understanding that we have no control over what happens to us, but we do have complete control over how we choose to react. And the more you exercise this break, the more natural it becomes. Gradually, you realize that you are no longer a hostage to your emotions, but rather their master. And over time, this not only improves the way you react to anger, but it also makes you a more balanced person in all aspects of life. Worst-case visualization. Now that you've learned the importance of pausing and breathing before reacting to anger, let's explore a powerful technique that can completely change your perspective in moments of tension, the worst-case scenario visualization. This technique, practiced by the ancient Stoics, has a simple but profound purpose. When you feel anger growing, instead of letting yourself be overwhelmed by it, stop for a moment and imagine the worst-case scenario. Think about it. What is the worst outcome that this situation can bring? By doing so, you take the emotional weight off the moment, and the anger begins to lose strength. The beauty of this technique lies in reminding us of an essential truth. Most of the problems we face, no matter how intense they seem at the time, rarely result in the worst-case scenario. And even if they did, would it really be the end of the world? Would this affect your life irreversibly? By visualizing the worst, you put yourself in a position of acceptance. You mentally prepare yourself for what will actually never happen. And by doing so, the current situation is seen more clearly, with less emotion. The anger dissipates, because you understand that no matter what happens, you will be able to handle it. This practice is not about pessimism, but about realism. When you imagine the worst and realize that you can survive it, the weight of anger turns to lightness. The situation that seemed impossible to control now becomes manageable. You free yourself from the need to control every detail, accepting that the outcome does not define who you are. And over time, you realize that many of the things that irritated you deeply don't have the power to affect you as much as they once did. This is true emotional freedom. Practice visualizing the worst-case scenario. The next time you feel taken by anger, stop, imagine the worst, and realize that you have the power to face any outcome. Instead of technique. Now that you've begun to understand the power of visualizing the worst-case scenario and how it can bring balance in moments of anger, let's take it a step further. I want to introduce you to another powerful and simple technique, but one that can completely transform the way you react to situations, the instead of technique. Imagine the following scene. You're in traffic, late, and someone cuts you off sharply. The immediate instinct is to explode, to scream, to honk, to let anger dominate. But here's the secret: instead of reacting impulsively, take a deep breath. Instead of getting carried away by frustration, think about the opportunity you have to stay calm and preserve your peace. This change in mindset is the key. By redirecting your emotional energy to more controlled actions, you free yourself from the bondage of your impulses and take control of your decisions. And you know what's interesting? Over time, this practice not only improves your response to challenging situations, but also transforms other aspects of your life. You begin to realize that you don't have to respond immediately to what provokes you. Each time you use instead of, it's as if you're reprogramming your mind to act wiser, more centered. And this not only takes you away from decisions you might regret, but also makes you a more resilient person, ready to face challenges calmly and clearly. If you practice this consistently, you'll notice amazing changes. At work, you will be seen as someone who knows how to handle pressure. In relationships, fights decrease, conversations become more mature. And internally, you begin to feel a peace that once seemed distant. These small choices make all the difference. Daily reflection. Now that you've learned how to use the instead of technique, redirecting your anger and emotional energy into more constructive actions, it's time to take another important step on this journey of emotional control and self-mastery. And this step involves something simple, but extremely powerful: daily reflection. We all go through times when emotions seem to take over. Sometimes, we manage to use techniques such as instead of, but in other situations, we are taken by surprise, and before we know it, we have already reacted impulsively. This is normal, it happens to everyone. But what differentiates those who manage to evolve and continuously improve is the practice of reflecting on these moments. At the end of the day, take a few minutes to ask yourself, what sparked my anger today? How did I react? What could have been done differently? This self-analysis is essential to understand our emotional patterns and, little by little, shape them in a more balanced way. It is in this pause for reflection that we begin to realize the roots of our reactions, better understanding what affects us and why. This daily exercise not only helps us process what happened, but also prepare our mind for future situations. By constantly reflecting, you begin to train your mind to act more calmly and wisely, even when emotions try to overwhelm you. And over time, this practice becomes natural, making you deal with life's challenges with a serenity that many would envy. Stoicism teaches us that true power lies in learning from our mistakes, in observing ourselves without judgment, but with the intention of improving every day. By setting aside these minutes of reflection, you not only control your anger better, but you also get closer to a more conscious and balanced life. Make daily reflection a tool for transformation. Because it is in the small reviews of everyday life that we build a stronger, more centered and more prepared version of ourselves. And over time, you'll see how this simple habit can transform the way you live and see the world around you. Emotional diary. Now, let's move on to a simple but incredibly effective tool to take this practice to a deeper level, the emotional journal. Writing is one of the oldest and most powerful ways to organize our thoughts and emotions. When we put on paper what we are feeling, we create a healthy distance between us and the emotions that often dominate us. And that gives us clarity. By keeping an emotional journal, you not only record moments of frustration or anger, but you begin to identify patterns in your behavior, what affects you, and how you react to each situation. Imagine being able to look back a week or a month later and clearly see what annoyed you, why, and what you could have done differently. This is not just a form of self-analysis, but a true journey of self-knowledge. Each note is an opportunity to better understand yourself, to see how certain situations repeat themselves, and most importantly, to see the improvements you're making over time. The practice of keeping an emotional journal also has another powerful effect. It allows you to discharge accumulated feelings and tensions. Often, we keep an emotional load within us that weighs us down, and just the act of writing about it brings immediate relief. It's as if, by transferring your emotions to paper, you're freeing up space in your mind to focus on what really matters. Also, as you review what you've written, you start to realize something fundamental. Many of the things that annoyed you in the past seem insignificant now. It gives you perspective. It helps to reduce the weight of future frustrations, because you know that over time, they lose their importance. Stoicism teaches us that life is more about how we react to things than about things themselves. And by recording these reactions, you take control. So, get started today. Grab a notebook or even your cell phone, and write down your feelings. Because this simple practice can be the next step to mastering your emotions and, with that, living a more balanced, more conscious, and undoubtedly happier life. Strengthening the bonds. We live in a world where pressure and stress often seem to overwhelm us. It's easy to feel isolated, like we're struggling alone against a sea of problems. But there is a simple practice, almost forgotten in the rush of everyday life, that can radically transform our way of dealing with difficulties: strengthening ties. Imagine a vase filled to the brim with water. If we keep pouring more water without emptying it a little, inevitably the water will start to overflow. Similarly, our frustrations and worries, when accumulated without a proper channel for release, can overflow into stress and distress. Sharing our feelings with friends or family is like opening a small relief valve in this vessel. Not only does it allow us to take a weight off our backs, but it also offers us the chance to see our problems from a new perspective. Stoic philosophy, which values resilience and the control of emotions, teaches us that the way we deal with challenges can define our well-being. However, Stoic practice does not mean that we should face everything alone. On the contrary, the Stoics believed in the importance of human relationships as a support in the search for serenity. When we share our frustrations, we are not just seeking solace, we are allowing others to offer us new perspectives, valuable insights that can often illuminate solutions that we did not realize before. Think about the times you felt relieved after a heart-to-heart conversation. The words of someone close to us can act as an anchor, helping to stabilize our emotions and providing clarity. By expressing what we feel, we are reminded that we are not alone in this journey. Shared experiences can serve as solace, and sometimes the empathy of a friend or family member can shed new light on what seemed like a maze of problems. In a world filled with digital connections, we often overlook the power of real, deep conversations. The practice of sharing our challenges and emotions is a return to the authenticity of human relationships. It is an invitation to break free from the shackles of isolation and embrace the strength of genuine connections. By seeking the support of those around us, we are not just sharing the load, we are strengthening the bonds that unite us and, often, discovering new ways to face our challenges. Exercise. As we delve into the topic of sharing our frustrations, there is an additional tool that can prove to be extremely powerful in improving our well-being: physical exercise. Regular physical activity is not only beneficial for the body but also for the mind, offering crucial relief from accumulated tensions and an effective means of dealing with anger. Imagine a pressure cooker about to burst. As the heat increases, the internal pressure also grows. If there is no way to release this pressure, eventually the pot will explode. Similarly, worries and stress, if not managed effectively, end up manifesting as irritation and anger. Physical exercise acts as an outlet, allowing this pressure to be relieved before emotions become uncontrollable. When we engage in physical activity, we are not only conditioning our bodies but also helping to release the tensions built up in the mind. The Stoics, who value self-discipline and managing emotions, remind us of the importance of taking care of the body as a reflection of our mind. For them, the practice of self-control and physical practice are not separate, but intertwined. Regular exercise not only improves our physical health, but also strengthens our emotional resilience. In times of anger or frustration, physically moving can be a powerful way to recalibrate our emotions and find an inner balance. There is a famous story about an ancient philosopher who, while facing a particularly challenging day, dedicated himself to a long and vigorous walk. This simple act of movement brought him clarity and a new perspective on his problems. This illustrates how physical activity can function as a form of meditation on the go, allowing the mind to free itself from the shackles of frustration and reconnect with a sense of calm and control. So as you seek ways to cope with anger and frustration, keep in mind the practical wisdom that exercise offers. Don't underestimate the power of a simple walk or a regular workout. Practice of forgiveness. By exploring how to share our frustrations and embrace exercise as a way to relieve stress, we come to a crucial aspect of our inner peace, the practice of forgiveness. The act of forgiving can seem challenging and often confusing, but it is an essential tool for restoring harmony within ourselves. It is not about forgetting or justifying harmful actions, but about releasing anger and resentment for our own well-being. Imagine a heavy rock tied to a rope around your waist. Each time we feed anger and resentment, this boulder becomes heavier, pulling us down and making our journey more difficult. Forgiving is like letting go of the rope and allowing the stone to fall. By releasing the weight of resentment, we free up our own energy and restore emotional balance. Forgiveness, therefore, is not a favor to the other, but a gift we give to ourselves. Stoic philosophers, such as Epictetus and Seneca, emphasize the importance of maintaining serenity and control over our emotions. For them, forgiveness was a practice of wisdom and self-control. By forgiving, we are essentially asserting our decision-making power over how we react to offenses and choices that affect us. Not allowing anger and resentment to dominate our emotional state is an expression of our inner strength and a way to maintain tranquility. There is an inspiring story about a famous military leader who, after a great betrayal, decided to forgive his enemies rather than seek revenge. He understood that by doing so, he was breaking the chains that bound him to the past and making room for a more serene and productive future. This decision to forgive did not mean accepting or forgetting the betrayal, but rather choosing emotional freedom over the weight of bitterness. On a day-to-day basis, practicing forgiveness can be as simple as making a conscious effort to let go of minor offenses and irritations. You don't have to wait for grand gestures or dramatic changes to get started. Forgiveness can begin with acknowledging the small sources of anger and deliberately letting them go. By doing so, you create a lighter and more open internal space for new opportunities and relationships. Memento Mori. As we reflect on the power of forgiveness and the importance of physical exercise, we come to a fundamental concept in Stoic philosophy, memento mori. This practice, which translates the idea of remember that you are mortal, is an invitation to recognize the impermanence of life and put our daily frustrations into perspective. Imagine life as a constant flux, where every moment is a drop in a vast ocean. Our worries and discontents may seem immense, but when we remember our own finitude, we realize how ephemeral these issues are. The memento mori is not a reminder to live in fear, but rather to live with purpose and clarity. By recognizing that our time is limited, we are encouraged to focus on what really matters and to let go of the small irritations that often overwhelm us. The Stoics, such as Marcus Aurelius, found great wisdom in confronting the inevitability of death. For them, remembering their own mortality helped them keep their minds focused on the present and appreciate each moment more deeply. By accepting that life is fleeting, we are better able to face difficulties with a more balanced and serene perspective. Impermanence teaches us that challenges and frustrations are just transitory moments on a much larger journey. There is an old fable that illustrates this point well. A king, worried about the imminent arrival of death, sought out a wise man who offered him a ring with the inscription, "This too shall pass." The king, when he understood the message, realized that both his moments of joy and his crises were temporary. This simple wisdom helped him live more serenely and face life's ups and downs with a clearer, less disturbed vision. By incorporating the memento mori into our everyday lives, we begin to see frustrations and obstacles in a new light. Instead of letting ourselves be consumed by stress and anger, we can choose tranquility and focus on what really has value. This practice provides us with a powerful opportunity to prioritize what is meaningful and to face our challenges with a lighter mind and a more peaceful heart. In closing, remember, time is limited and precious. Don't let small frustrations obscure the grandeur of life. Understanding our own mortality should not bring regret, but rather a renewed sense of purpose and clarity. If you're looking for more ways to deal with life's difficulties with serenity and resilience, I invite you to explore my other videos. They are meant to help you find the peace and inner strength you need to face daily challenges and live a fuller life. I'll wait for you in the next video.